Energy flow in ecosystems.
By Sky,
Allie,
Ben.
and Ruth. What is an ecosystem? A system is components dependent on each other in regular connection to form a united structure. An ecosystem is an ecological system, thus a population of organisms and their environment handled together as one interconnected working system. Here are some components of an ecosystem. Sequence, a particular order in which related events, movements, or things follow each other. Growth, which is the process of increasing in physical size. Metabolism, which is the set of life-sustaining chemicals transformations within the cell of living organisms. Matter cycles, organisms depend on ability to recycle basic nutrients of life. And reaction to environment, which is endothermic and exothermic reactions, for an example. And then there's cellular boundaries, which is like cellular walls. Energy flow. All living things need energy in order to grow, maintain themselves, reproduce, and other things. For all living things, there must be a root of energy and a loss of disposable energy.
So there are three different types of energy. Heat energy is a form of energy that moves in a system through kinetic energy of particles. And then mechanical energy is obtained due to objects in motion or their position. And then chemical energy would be energy that's stored in chemical compound bonds within atoms and molecules. And then energy transformations. An energy transformation, it's basically a procedure of altering one form of energy to another, so changing from heat energy to mechanical. And then, so there's alterations of energy from solar to chemical and mechanical, then to heat energy is the common theme in an ecosystem ecology. And then there are abiotic and biotic components. And abiotic means non-living chemical and physical parts of the environment that affect living organisms and the functioning of ecosystems. So solar energy, an abiotic component, supplies the majority of energy for ecosystems. And then there's inorganic substances, and these usually rotate through an ecosystem, so they'd be things like sulfur. And then there's also organic compounds, and organic compounds make a link that connects the abiotic and the biotic parts of the structure, so like proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and different complex molecules. And then in an ecosystem, so we briefly talked about the abiotic components and the biotic components. So the abiotic components would be climate factors because they are non-living components. So rain, light, wind, temperature, and then the edaphic factors, which is the soil, minerals, oxygen, and the topography. And then the biotic components are the living components, which would be the producers, consumers, and decomposers, which we'll divulge into further in the slideshow.
So, as Sky just said, biotic components are the living things that shape an ecosystem. Any living component that affects another organism is a biotic component. The biotic attributes of an ecosystem can be categorized in relation to the mode of attaining energy. And these can be divided into autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs or producers are plants and algae. They don't eat other organisms and instead get their nutrients from photosynthesis. So they're self-sustaining primary producers. Autotrophs will store energy from the sun and keep it in complex organic compounds. And then there's heterotrophs, which are consumers, and these cannot create their own food. So these would be like herbivores or omnivores. So basically anything alternative sustaining, they need energy already in complex molecules. So anything other than plants or algae, pretty much. And heterotrophs are, again, consumers in the food chain. And then there's the herbivores, which break down dead plant and animal waste. They release energy for recycling. So these are like mushrooms or fungi. These are also called decomposers. They're the recyclers in the ecosystem, and so they recycle the energy.
So this is a food web that very easily shows the producers, consumers, and decomposers. So in this food web, the yellow arrow is the movement of energy, and the black arrows are the movement of mineral, nutrient, movement. So we start at the sun, which gives energy to the producers, the autotrophs, and then the autotrophs are consumed, and the energy is given to the herbivores, which then either give it directly to the decomposers or to the carnivores first, um, being eaten or um, simply dying off or disposing of the energy. Then from the decomposers, it is given back off to the mineral nutrient pool, which then gives it once more to the producers, and the cycle repeats itself.
Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance. As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all the creatures, from the crawling ant to the leaping antelope.
Dad, don't we eat the antelope?
Yes, Simba, but let me explain. When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life.
Thermodynamics are, in relation to energy flow, are that energy only goes in one direction. This is very important to show that energy cannot go backwards from, say, a carnivore back to an autotroph. A wolf or a plant-eating animal cannot quickly apologize and give the energy back to the plant. It doesn't work quite like that. Energy can be altered to one form or another, but it cannot be produced or destroyed. The amount of energy in an ecosystem will always be constant. A trophic level of any living thing is of any living thing that is that holds a place in the food chain for that ecosystem. So this includes primary producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. So this just shows that the energy starts from the plants, who of course take the energy from the sun through photosynthesis, and then they give it to the herbivores, then finally the predators or carnivores, and then the top predators, and then the energy will cycle itself back down to the bottom and work its way up again. Summer sailed in, filled my mind, you see, colored my skin. I must say.
Food chains. So, in the food chains, the nutrients is the soils and the plants, and the plants are considered producers, and the animals are considered the consumers. And food webs. So, a food web focuses on one specific part of the ecosystem. For example, here, the Arctic hare. It's an in-depth way of showing a food chain. The arrows in the food web show the transfer of energy regarding the Arctic hare, for example, in this photo. And it shows the animals and organisms that are affected and that affect the Arctic hare. Waiting on